Reporter Judith Miller got out of jail last month, escorted by none other than her publisher at the New York Times, Arthur Sulzberger. The message was the Times remained solidly behind her, and that's what she told CNN's Lou Dobbs.
Every person at the New York Times just about sent me a letter, a postcard, an email to let me know that they were thinking about me, and it made such a difference.
But oh, how things suddenly changed. In a memo to the staff last week, portions of which were printed in the New York Times, executive editor Bill Keller said, "If I had known the details of Judy's entanglement with Louis Scooter Libby, Vice President Cheney's chief of staff, I'd have been more careful in how the paper articulated its defense." Miller fired back in a memo she released to the Times. "As for your reference to my entanglement with Mr. Libby," she said, "I had no personal, social, or other relationship with him except as a source." Then this weekend, it got even uglier. In a controversial column, Maureen Dowd called her colleague a woman of mass destruction, wondering if Miller's time in jail was in part a career rehabilitation project. Dowd bluntly told Don Imus that her attack on Miller had nothing to do with how she feels about her.
But it seemed personal.
No, it wasn't. That's why I was trying to say I like her. It's not, as they say in The Godfather, it's business. It's not personal.
Media observers say it's extremely unusual for a news organization to publicly attack one of its own.
The viciousness of the attacks, the depth of the sarcasm of Maureen Dowd's column. What purpose does that serve? Why say that?
It is just the latest crisis to stir up the Times' newsroom. 2 years ago, the paper was humiliated after a young reporter, Jason Blair, was exposed fabricating stories. Then last year, the paper admitted stories alleging Iraq had weapons of mass destruction were wrong. Many were written by Miller herself. That only emboldened her critics inside the Times.
Judith Miller has a long history of the New York Times with questions surrounding her, and I think this has brought a lot of that prior history to the forefront.
But even some of Miller's biggest critics say some of the blame for the anger inside the newsroom should rest with the management of the paper itself.
Judy, who called herself Miss Runamuck, was being allowed to run amok again, and I think that's where the resentment was aimed at the leadership at the paper.
The New York Times and Judith Miller declined to comment for our story. Talks between the two sides about her departure, sources say, are at a standstill, leaving so many questions still unanswered about why the New York Times, which actively supported Miller only weeks ago, now wants her to go. Kelly Wallace, CNN, New York.